You are watching Roscoe Gadsden's Standard Capacity Online Magazine. Let's talk about this. AK74, there's plenty of info out there about it. We're just going to talk about a few things that I don't think get enough mention, and go over a couple of the very simple things, because you never know when you got somebody watching that doesn't know the easy stuff. So, trying to not be too boring here for people that are a little more experienced, but bear with me. Magazine removal like this, magazine insertion like this. This actually makes it superior in some ways to, say, the M4 carbine, because if it goes in hard, you've got all this leverage here. Wow. Okay, magazine out. Going to check the chamber. Chamber is empty. Safety's on, so I can't cycle it all the way. I'm going to go ahead and chamber a live round. I'm here all alone. No issue with it. So I got one round of the magazine. Rock the magazine in. I cannot chamber that round. Take the safety off, and I can chamber it. To me, that's a downside. I'd like to be able to chamber around with the safety on. Now let's see what happens. I'll put the safety on and try to eject that round. Won't come out. It's in there. Let's take the magazine back out. Get rid of that round. This is not actually locked back. I'm doing it upside down because otherwise I'm doing everything left-handed. So, again, that is not locked back. That is just kind of stuck on the hammer, you might say. If I just give it a whack, it goes home. So let's put the safety on. There is no means for locking the bolt back. That is somewhat typical of European stuff, and certainly Russian and Chinese. No provision for that to me is a big downside. But be that as it may, I want to talk about this muzzle brake a little bit. And I'm not really a big fan of muzzle brakes on rifles, outside of maybe shooting prairie dogs, or maybe doing something like target shooting or what have you. You actually, I mean, like an NRA high power, you can't use such a device. So when I say target shooting, I mean quote target unquote shooting. The problem with muzzle brakes, especially in a high intensity caliber like this, is there's so much stuff coming out the end when you shoot this that when you divert some of it out the sides, anybody that's on the line with you, or heaven forbid, right next to you in a gunfight, they're in danger. It doesn't just make it extra loud. It's not just extra noise, although it is that. It's particulate, high-speed particulate. I've actually managed to blast the paint off the side of a car. I was shooting a rifle with a muzzle brake of my own design on it years ago, and I had it up against, let's say this is the side of the car. I'm bracing myself, bang, 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 bang. Blew the paint right off it. So that is not an ideal thing to have, I think, on a combat rifle. Let's talk about the trigger pull on this one. It's pretty typical. A lot of AKs have this. So I'm going to take the top cover off. So I'm going to push this in. Take the top cover off. That easy. I'm going to take the spring out. And let's see if we can look at the trigger group here. So the safety is off now. I'm pulling the trigger part way. You can see the disconnector rocking forward. I cock that. You can see the disconnector. See, it's hard to pull the trigger without dropping the hammer. It is so feathery light because the engagement between the... Let me just... Well, I'm going to leave that in there. The engagement between the hammer and sear is neutral. And it is not a two-stage trigger. It's just a really long, light one-stage trigger. And the poundage on this is quite light. I'm going to say it's 4 pounds absolute max. What I would like to see happen, you see that disconnector rocking forward right here. I would like to see that bump the hammer at the very last minute. That's how two-stage triggers work. And if it could bump the hammer just at the last minute, then this has a springiness to it that the trigger puller would have to overcome. So you would go pull, 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 and it would bump, and then you know you're there. And now you have almost like a really nice single-stage trigger to complete the pull and fire the gun. Let's talk about the ammo for a minute. Interesting stuff. It's often called something like, you know, the Soviet copy of our 5.56. We're talking about a head stamp that says 270 and then 76. Oh, actually, this one is from a different batch. So the 270 head stamp means Ukrainian made. And we've had this from Ukraine, from Russia, and from Bulgaria. That head stamp again is 539 and then 76. So this is the 7N6 ammo. Very interesting in how it's constructed. It's a 53 grain full metal jacket, steel jacket with a steel core. The steel core is double-ended so that in production it can go in either way. It's like a little slug of steel. It's boat-tailed on either end, you could say. So it's not really pointed. It's not meant to be armor piercing, so it's not AP, but it will P some A. And it's a penetrating mofo. It goes through a lot of things that other calibers won't. I chronographed these today, and I came up with this. Ballistically speaking, it's right in there with our 5.56 by 45 in terms of bullet weight and velocity and bullet diameter. But in terms of terminal ballistic capabilities, this thing behaves differently. I'm not enough of an expert to say better or not better, but it does interesting things. I've shot some of these into ballistic gel, not a whole lot of them, but the general consensus is that the bullet goes in and it yaws once and it continues and it yaws a second time and kind of restabilizes. I'm thinking it probably was designed to do that. There's a lot of info out there about the ammo, so I'm not going to go into too much depth. There's a hollow, like a little airspace in here that helps with that effect, supposedly. There are updated versions of this ammo. There's 7N6M, where the steel core is harder and a little pointier on one end. And then there's another one, I don't remember what that is. But one question would be, being as how AKs are not famous for being accurate, what could we do with this at 500 yards? I mean, after all, the sight here is graduated up to 1,000 yards. That's our 1,000-yard setting right there. And then I'm back down to 0 and 1. How accurate can these be? I've had fairly decent accuracy with them. But let's take this one out to 500 yards and see what it'll do, if anything. So let's try this at 500 yards. I had to put that orange bucket up there because at 500 with my naked eye I could not discern my target. My target is the 42-inch steel plate with a white stripe down the middle, and let's see if we can hit it from 500. The ammo I'm using in this little feller is the 7N6 ammo. So it's a steel cord, steel jacketed. It's a little stinger. It's a penetrating mofo. Ammo is head stamped 270. Makes it coincidentally Ukrainian ammo. And the rifle happens to be Bulgarian. So let's get her set up and give it another try here. My previous attempt was not a success. The 500 meter setting and aiming low, that didn't really get it done. Okay. What I wound up with was using the 400 yard setting, and my point of aim was somewhere in here, not over it, but high end, a little bit to the right to account for this wind. So you have multiple hits there, and they were no accident. They weren't just random fire. Got quite a few there. I'm going to count them up here in a minute. Well, I guess that's 18 hits. Only the target cam knows, and we will check that. But right here, right now, it looks like about 18 hits. They're kind of scattered, kind of low. With a little bit more work, a guy could figure that out and know exactly what setting to use and what hold to use. So we're at 500 yards here. So the 400 meter setting would be about 440 yards. The 500 meter setting would be about 550 yards. There's not a 450 setting.